The Z's say humanity is at a tipping point. What's the one thing the Z's say we must stop doing right now?
I personally have never believed that we are here to control our reality to only be light, joy, because I don't think that's what this planet is. I think this planet has all of those things, but this planet is everything. We would say this is a precipice decade, and 2025 is a year of ignition. Energetically, what your planet is going through in the year of 2025 is an acceleration and a thrust energy. Each of you will be experiencing your own acceleration into your future, and you will be crafting your future as you go. We can tell you between 2026 and 2028, you are going to see some extraordinary...
Are you ready to shine? Shine bright. Woo-hoo! Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Uriel. Higher self, higher team, and all angels, guides, and light workers here for our highest good and the highest good of all. Please help me to help Lee today. Please help us to help humanity today. Please help us to shift consciousness today for our highest good, the highest good of all, or something even better. Woohoo! Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered what's coming next for humanity and for a bumpy ride, then do we have the Z Speak show for you. Today I'll be talking with Lee Harris, transformation teacher, best-selling author, and the creator of the Lee Harris Energy Show and his latest audiobook, Conversations with the Z's, Book 3, Demystifying the Journey of Life Before and After Death. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about the precipice humanity's at and what it means for you. So welcome back to the show, Lee. Are you ready to shine?
I am. It's good to see you, Michael. Thank you for having me back.
It is so good to see you as well. We are going to dive into a very special, I'm going to call it sweet, introverted energy of an interview today. Don't be scared off, everyone. I think we all need this right now. However, before we do that, the Z's say humanity is at a tipping point. What's the one thing the Z's say we must stop doing right now?
Well, one of the things that they keep giving as a message is for those of us who are able to, and in a scenario or a position in our lives where we are able to generate this, they say you have to generate joy for yourself and for others. And it's very easy to forget that, or it's very easy to think, when things are really tough for people around you or other parts of the world, maybe if you're not in one of those spots right now, they say it's so vital because so much of our positive energy comes from joy, and joy can mean many things. It can, it can literally look like jumping up and down and being very, very excited. It can be very quiet and internal. It can be, I'm looking out of my window right now at these beautiful trees in the apartment I'm in the UK, where I live some of the year, and they bring me joy. Just seeing them reconnects me to something inside myself that no matter what's going on in my world or the world, I try every day to find something, and some days I do better than others, to just connect me to the fact that I'm alive, and that is a miracle. And we forget that. We forget what a miracle it is to be alive, and we get very seduced into horrors or stories of what's going on, and yet the truth is any of us could go at any minute, which I think in a way is what the audiobook that we're bringing out this month is really a testament to. It's this extraordinary, even though the book focuses on death and rebirth and reincarnation, it really, I think, helps you live in a way, in a more present, conscious way.
Thank you. And there's so many directions I want to go with this. I was in a bike race yesterday, a running race the day before. I told you before we went on air, we were talking, and there's still a lot of recovery going on from this kiss of an automobile to my head a few years ago. And yesterday, I had no business riding, but I did anyway. I got passed by a 10-year-old in the mountain bike race, and then somebody in sneakers, like in Keds. The day before in the running race, I came in last, but actually part of my strategy of just go out and play. And those were both joyful moments and joyful events as I go, there's so much going on in life right now. I could be, oh, poor me, woe is me. This is freaking awesome.
Beautiful. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, competitive stuff is weird. I think most people who have a more spiritual mindset, competition is strange. Even competitive athletes I have known who are more conscious. Yes, of course, they want to push themselves and they want to, but even they see the spirit of the race and the spirit of a group doing it together.
So it's I use a term called co-opetition. And I picture an Olympics where we're all working together. Forget about the gold medal. Let's see what we can do to raise up all of us to have an even higher level of achievement. So last week I got second place in the mountain bike race. Woohoo! I thought maybe, despite the summer cold, I'd be able to win it yesterday, although I knew that there was a chance that I was going to be dead last. And to me, as I'm sliding backwards and backwards, I'm cheering people on. Whoever passes me, I'm saying, you're doing great. A guy at the finish line goes, I was able to catch you just before the finish line. I'm like, what's your name? He's like, Dan. I'm like, Dan, you did awesome. To me, that's this new world. We're bringing each other up. We're enjoying that moment without scale or judgment or a level behind it.
Yeah, and younger people now, they're growing up in a world where that's true. Whereas, say, you and I, Michael, we're not too far apart in age. We grew up in a very different, we were taught a different mindset.
Oh yeah, we were taught. I remember and then I want to go to this other piece where you were mentioning. I took a class, I don't know, some advanced programming class, and this professor said you need to work individually on this group project or on these individual projects. And we got into them, and there was no way. And I got everybody together, and we started working on it. We learned so much from it. We turned in our work, and the professor tells me, I heard that you worked together on this and that you led this. I may need to fail you because I can only give so many people good grades and I have to give the rest bad grades. Now everybody did well. What are we going to do about this? And I said, well, this is something to be celebrated that we all achieved. And I said, I don't work on that paradigm. And so he said I had to take this special test. If I passed it, I passed the class. If not, I got an F and I wouldn't pass my whole degree. But that was just demonstrating the old paradigm of competition, of scarcity, of lack, of having to fight each other, versus what I see is this amazing, joyous opportunity to come together. It's a scary world out there right now. If we don't come together, if we come together, it's crazy amazing right now.
And it's funny, isn't it, that it's always when tragedy strikes. So, I've lived through several wildfires now because I live just outside Los Angeles. And having lived through several of those in the last kind of 7, 8 years, it is extraordinary how community comes together when they need to. And yet we are also seeing the dying off of this old world supremacy, oppression. Uh, Everything that the Z's, my guides, talk about, they say that we came from oneness, and oneness where we are connected to the whole is very much what those of us who are working with consciousness are here doing. And of course, we do it better in some areas than others. We're all different, we're all individual. There might be certain areas you can effortlessly practice oneness in your life, other areas that you're not as advanced at it as someone else might be. But that's kind of the goal, they say, that our generation and the generations to come, it's our, if you like, spiritual mission or soul mission to help bring as much oneness to the planet and anchor those frequencies on the planet as much as possible. Because of course, nature is doing that all the time, but even nature has been conquered by man, and so we're in this very interesting time where it's all supposed to break down over a series of decades, and we're right in the heart and the heat of that right now, which doesn't make for a comfortable time on Earth. But I always say, look at the history books. I think it's very easy for those of us who are alive now to look at what's going on in the outside world and understandably be nervous or scared or heartbroken. And yet, when you look at history for humanity as well, it's been a pretty tough picture for every generation at certain points. So that's not to take away from, that's not to say bypass your feelings about what's going on now, but I do think we need to keep perspective. I think some people only think about what's going on right now and they see what's going on in the world and they focus on that. When you actually look at how life has been on Earth through thousands of years, there are incredible potentials and also gifts that many of us are getting to experience right now. Not in the least, I think of modern medicine. And even though I'm someone who uses alternative medicine and modern medicine in combination, and depending on what's going on, you think of the pain that you would have been in a couple of hundred years ago if something had happened to you, that now there are resources and tools that can help with that. I mean, that's just one small example. So I do think we have to keep it in perspective, but that's not to take away from anyone who wants to stand for current abuses or stand against current abuses or try and be the change they wish to see in the world. That's part of our job too, but I do think there is a perspective check that we all need to have sometimes.
Thank you. And yes, I'm thinking as you're talking about the environment of looking out the window here at Lake Champlain, which more often than not is polluted by a local river that comes down to it. And I'm thinking about the titanium parts in my body that if it wasn't for modern medicine, and I'm as holistic as the next guy. But if it wasn't for modern medicine, I'd be dead many times over.
Yeah, you know, the Z's said something really interesting to me years ago. So I had something going on with my foot, which I couldn't treat with. I tried treating it with alternative medicine for like a year and a half, and there was just nothing was happening, and I was throwing everything at it. Um, and then I channeled on it and I asked about it, and they said, this came from your father's line, and your father does not believe in alternative medicine, and so alternative medicine for him wouldn't have worked. So this will work if you treat it with modern medicine. Now, for me at that time, and we were going back 15 years, I don't think I'd been to a doctor for like, I don't know, 5 years. I'd gone to my acupuncturist, I'd gone to loads of different alternative therapists. But lo and behold, I went to the doctor. I took the thing that they gave me, and it was gone within like 2 months, and it never came back. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's also the frequency with which something is in your body can require a certain frequency. So that was a real teaching moment for me around there is no one hard and fast rule for anything. It's all got to be case by case basis.
Yeah, without judgment. And actually, I want to go to that word judgment because earlier you were talking about joy and celebration, and we've got our School of Mystics. Our next month is on joy and celebration, cultivating that energy. I had someone in class last night who I can see she has such a big soul, and yet she was playing such a small game. And she's saying, I don't feel like I'm making any difference in the world. And it hit me on two levels. One, how small and powerless she feels. Two, the sense of, I can't possibly be joyous or be happy. Forgive me, everybody, when there are missiles falling, when there are fires burning, when there are riots in the street. How do I make a difference? And how do I cultivate joy when I feel like I shouldn't, what a dangerous word, shouldn't be happy right now?
I think it's tricky because one of the things I've noticed in the spiritual community, and it's a community I've been a student of for 33 years. I was about 15, 16, and I've been teaching in it for 21 years. The problem that we have in the spiritual community that I see over and over again is people want to know what the rule is, and there isn't one. People want to know tell me what it is, and it's like I can't. I can tell you what it might be for you if you let me work with you a little bit and understand what's going on in you, because we're all different. So many people are, even an interview I did a week ago, I was being asked very yes no questions, and I was like, I can't answer a yes, I can't give you a yes no answer because it's going to really depend on the individual. So I think in the case of this person, it sounds like this person needs to be allowed to grieve and needs to be allowed to go through the horror and the grief that she is feeling about the world, and should stop trying to make a difference and should let herself go deeply into the horror and the pain and the grief, knowing that when she has gone into it, she will come out the other side. I certainly had my own times in life where I felt despair or felt I didn't want to be here. I mean, I'm going back in time, But I had a big breakthrough myself, which changed everything for me. It was around 10 or 11 years ago. And it was, I made peace with the fact that I'm on a planet where suffering is part of the deal. And I've made peace with that personally, and I've made some level of peace with that in terms of that's how the world is. It doesn't mean I see a tragedy that's happening or another threat of war between those in power who want to push some kind of war on we the people that we don't need, and that we don't want, but we don't have a great deal of say in the matter while we're still in such a top-down system, which is part of what's going to be breaking apart in the coming years and decades, and we're in it right now, that breakdown. Um, it doesn't mean I'm happy when I see any of that stuff, but I think there is a I think sometimes I've met people who think they can love and light their way out of it. And I don't think you can. I think you have to be able to know when you're in a light moment and when you're in a suffering moment. And that will happen to us personally. It will happen in the world. But the truth is, there will always be suffering. I had a very important message in 2019 that came to me from a Buddha, actually, a beautiful statue in the garden at Blue Spirit, Costa Rica. We'd just gone through this extraordinary retreat with people, and they he didn't tell me off. But he did tell me, I had this massive awakening experience on the lawn. It came out of nowhere. It lasted about 6 minutes. Everything disappeared. I was one with everything. And then I got put back into my normal body. So, like many of us, an awakening experience. But it was such a powerful one. And it was on the back of some major stuff. And the Buddha actually said to me, now your job is to create beauty. He said, your work is about to get serious in the world. And he was right because it was the end of 2019. I'd always taken my work seriously, not myself, but my work. So I found that odd, but he was right. And then it was actually a couple of years later when I went back to the Buddha. Sorry, I'm just remembering that there was two messages, one in 2019, one in 2023. And in 2023, he said, now your job is to create beauty and light for people. He said, others will pick up the mantle around suffering. And this was very confusing to me because I thought, well, suffering is part of working with people. It's part of the deal. You never know who's coming to you, you never know what they're in, and your job is to work with them. But interestingly, it has shifted something for me. After many, many years of working with, I guess, including that energy, and still it will get included. You can't not. People's suffering will come up. If you're holding something light for them and they feel drawn to the light, the suffering that's in the way will come up for them. But it was a consciousness shift that the Buddha was trying to impart to me, but it wasn't personal to me. It was very much where we're going next and what kind of frequencies are going to need to be held on Earth. So it's very much informed probably the last month, the last year or so of all the work I've done. It took about a year to land in me more. And then in the last year, I've gone, yep, even our tour that we did, we called it the Big Love Tour. And there was a part of my human brain that went, the Big Love Tour, there's so much crazy going on. And it was like, no, you need to go out there with that as a message. So sometimes you have to push against the tide in order to do it. But I think we have to follow, what we're here to do. And the message from the Buddha was, suffering will always be there. You don't go hunting suffering. Suffering will find you. You create beauty and you create light for yourself and for the world. And that will be the elevation of everything. And I was like, okay, I understand. I'm being asked to, as any of us who are healers for a long time, I'm being asked to update my mission, stop doing it the old way, do it a new way, find ways to reinvent what I'm doing. I mean, that's the path for any of us, both in our personal life and in our work.
Thank you. I've heard the term love revolution. Lately, I've been hearing a rebellion of love, because it is a conscious choice we get to make. So if I'm having a bad day, and guys, I have as many bad days as anybody else. It's just how I consciously choose to look at it and then what I do with that energy. I'm having a bad day, something, I didn't get any sleep last night, and I literally didn't get any sleep. I can come back, jump down to Jessica and go, oh, and go, I'm taking note. I feel pretty miserable right now, and it's going to be a great day. It's still going to be a great day. It is a conscious choice where I choose to place my focus right now.
I think there's always perspective too, isn't there? Because even right now in my life, I can tell you of four people or five people in my fairly immediate circle, probably a lot more actually. No, there's more, who are going through something really tough or really difficult. And I've had those experiences in my own life. So I think, we can. I'm in the UK right now, and one of the things I love about the Brits is they love moaning. Like it's kind of, and it used to bother me before I moved to America. Before I moved to America, I used to think, oh, why is everyone so negative here? I'm glad I'm going somewhere where, but you know what? Now I kind of find it endearing, and it's almost like just a way they communicate. They don't even really mean it. It's like they moan if it's too cold, they moan if it's too hot, they moan if it's no, if it's cloudy, they moan if it's sunny. It's just
I'd fit right
cultural.
in today.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think there's something about that that's kind of that to me is very endearing now. But I think there's a difference between moaning about something like, sure, not having sleep isn't fun. But then there's also learning that you've got a terminal illness or one of your best friends has suddenly died and I think this is how life is. Like you never quite know what's coming next. So I think keeping a perspective on the blessings is really important.
Right before I went on air, was it Monday night? Um, my wife had an intuitive hit and looked up a dear friend of mine online who had passed away earlier on COVID that I didn't even know. And here I am told right before I go on air that your dear friend has passed away. That's life right now. That's kind of this interesting of what we get to hold. And I think it actually, I'm looking, my daughter has just come back from swim lessons. It actually makes life even more precious at this moment. That's such a duality or such um a seeing of and I definitely want to ask you about it and Aziz about suffering in more in a minute. But seeing that darkness helps us to recognize the light so much easier. We're recording this the day before summer solstice in the north, winter solstice in the south, where it's incredibly dark, but that means even the tiniest little ember or candle can light up an entire room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, the day I was about to do the first date on our Australia and New Zealand tour, we had our first show that day. I found out that someone I loved very much, who was a very important love of my life for almost 4 years, had died aged 53. And it just makes you, and it was a shock death, and he and I lived and worked together, and he was a spiritual author. His name is Story Waters, and I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe he was gone. But that is the truth of life right now. And funnily enough, the Z's said in 2019, they said you're about to go through a period on Earth where grief is going to be a big part of people's learning and healing. I didn't know why. I heard that and thought, I wonder what's going to happen. And I mean, even now we see the amount of people, the amount of deaths that are happening on the planet, and the amount of continual deaths that are still happening that, we're learning of. So people are losing loved ones at all kinds of ages. And I think also, aside from the loss of people's loved ones, I think 2020, 2021, and to some degree 2022 were major grief years on the planet because of everything that people lost. It wasn't just loved ones. It was, everything from finances to jobs to freedom to community and I think it has catalyzed this massive change. I've seen so many people lose friends because of arguments about opinions, or someone they were really close with. Suddenly, it's whether it's politics or whatever it is, something has just ripped a lot of people apart. But I think the what comes from that is a deeper knowing of who you are and what your values are. And I know for me, whenever I'm going through those experiences with other people, I do learn to let go, and I do learn to go, okay, well, for whatever reason, we no longer have the connection we had. I didn't want that necessarily or see it coming, but I trust it. And I also know that there will be more people who will come, who will take their place. I had a period over the last couple of years where a few real key people in my life were kind of taken off the board of my life. And I was really surprised at the time. But at the same time, what's interesting is this year, there are some new people who've come in, and I was thinking, wow, I would never have had room for these people. And what the Z's have said many years ago, and I experienced this in my own life, and I share it because I see it with so many other people. If a friend or a loved one or somebody that you have a strong relationship with leaves your life, you usually get the upgraded version. So if you learn the lesson and if you grieve and if you let go and you understand why you two were a season when maybe you thought you were a lifetime, there will be someone else who'll come along at a certain point in time who will remind you of, I call it the greatest hits of that person. So, some people go, oh God, I miss them. Yeah, we argued so much. But boy, I just laughed with them like I laughed with no one. And I always say, don't worry, you're going to if you have that capacity for humor and you've now created a vacuum in your life around it, you will be able to recreate that when and if you are willing. And when you have got over the grief and you've let go, someone else is going to come in that will be as funny or funnier, and you'll have even more humor and you'll appreciate it even more this time because you'll know what it's like to lose it. And there might be no arguments. This might be a more harmonious relationship if you do whatever reflection work is going to help you understand why maybe that relationship came off the rails or wasn't supposed to stay in your life for more than a season.
Thank you. Going to we think of yes, 2021, 2022, this time period of grief and of things falling apart, not just people, not just losing loved ones, but losing ways of being, losing income. It seems like 2025 just threw kerosene on that. And it's coming even faster. So I want to look at that, and then we'll go to the Z's maybe in just a little bit. But there's this term that the Z's use that I think you use as well, circular healing. And to me, that's both individual on a physical level, an energetic level, emotional level, and a planetary level, all of humanity at this time.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So I'm good friends with Pam Gregory, the astrologer. I don't know if you've ever had it. Yeah, she's wonderful. And what's nice is I really like and respect astrology, but I don't study it. I don't look at it. But Pam will often say something to me regards something I've said in an energy update, and she'll go, "Oh, that's right in line with the astrology because it's mapping that we're back in the time of the 60s." So one of the things that I've noticed with our patterns as a society, I look at everything that happened around George Floyd, and that was a major healing around horrendous inequality wounds that have been active on the planet for a long time. And here it was rising to the surface for healing. We also had the Me Too movement. And no, I also know there are some people who have very strong opinions about different movements and what they really mean. But you can't deny that there are global moments that rise to the surface where we all go through a healing. And it's a bit like going back in time to the last time there was a level of healing around it and it's just been pushed down again. And now we have this yet another layer comes up. And it doesn't fix everything overnight, but it deals with things in layers. And the Z's have always said that we deal with things as much as we can. So I've met people who give themselves a really hard time about the way they're healing. They go, "Oh, I'm regressing." And I'm like, you're not regressing.
Thank you.
You can regress if you go round and round in a mind loop and you want to attack yourself. The Z's always say self-judgment is the fastest way to stop your progress. And for those of us who've had self-judgment in our lives, I think that's a great wake-up call because then you go, "Oh, okay." You catch yourself doing it and you see how unhelpful and useless it really is. So you go, okay, I need to change these words of self-judgment and I need to replace them with positive affirmations. So if I'm saying to myself, "Oh, I'm really stupid," then I need to catch that and have a moment of awareness and go, I am always doing the best I can. I am always as intelligent as I can be because you start to rewire the brain and the habit of being down on yourself that you learnt at some point in your history when someone told you off, chastised you, stopped your progress. So the Z's will say that we're always having circular healing, meaning we get to these points in our life where because we have a greater capacity or because we've healed in some other areas, we can suddenly pull up that file from when we were 22 and for the first time grieve it. And you think, oh, why did it take me till I was 55 to grieve 22? What's wrong with me? No, nothing's wrong with you. It's just it wasn't important and it wasn't able to be released into fresh life force. It had to stay as a wound or a dent because you never quite know what it's supporting. I always say that to people too. People will say, "Oh, well, I'm doing really well. If only I could just get over the part of me that is hard on myself." We don't know why you're hard on yourself. You being hard on yourself might be the thing that's keeping you balanced. It's a bit like looking at someone's Instagram profile and going, God, I'm really annoyed at her because she found a husband and I wish I could find a husband. She looks so happy with him. You don't know what she's dealing with. That husband and that relationship might not be what it looks like, or it might be the one saving grace in her life because she just lost both her parents and she went through some tragedy. This might be, so this is why we should be careful about thinking we know everything around healing. I think that sometimes areas of brilliance for us can come because we have some kind of limitation in another area. And I've seen that with people time and time again. They're amazing at certain things and you admire them and you think, God, I can't do that. But equally, they might not be able to do the thing that you're able to do. And so I think we just all need to give ourselves more grace that healing finds you. You don't have to go hunting it. Just like you shouldn't go hunting grief. Grief will find you when it's time for you to grieve. And if you're having a respite from grief, you don't have to feel guilty that you're not grieving that day because you lost someone. And we hear this time and time again. They go, oh, I feel guilty because I lost my husband and I'm having a happy day. Your husband wouldn't want you to be having a miserable day. That's no one who passes over maintains egoic structure. They all become so much lighter, so much brighter. And that's the beauty of having a spiritual connection with our loved ones who've passed over it. It's extraordinary how much lighter and brighter they become. And we will go there too at some point. And hopefully we'll live the life we're supposed to live as long as we're supposed to. But as the Z's say, you never know when you're going to be airlifted off the planet. So if you're thinking that you're the wrong planet, wrong time in history, don't want to be here, they say if you're still alive, get curious about what's next for you to experience because it's not a mistake that you're alive. There's a reason you're alive. They say it's very easy to die. It's very easy to be taken out by your soul, and your soul will decide when it's time. And your soul, they always say, will decide when it's time based on others. This is one of the things that came up in the audiobook, which was educational to me. They said, you sometimes think as humans that your death is all about when it's correct for you to die. But they say that you always, at a soul level, weigh up the timing of your death as to how and when it's going to affect your community. So they used in the book Princess Diana as an example of someone who catalyzed a lot of grief and healing because she was a very focal point to, so many people all over the world. That the timing of her death was very impactful for everybody. And equally, those of us who aren't, globally known like she was, the timing of our death is going to correspond with how it's going to affect our closest people and how it's going to positively or negatively affect their lives. And I found that very interesting. It's why certain people hold on. You go, why are they still holding on? Because it isn't quite time yet for the daughter or the granddaughter, but at the right time, it will be time.
Thank you. So I want to go someplace heavy for just a brief moment. I'm looking at in my mind's eye, looking at the missiles raining down in the Middle East, and a lot of sword sabering to make things quote unquote worse, and the checking out of so many souls because of this. Is this a war of the old guard, old way of being, or a last gasp before we come even more into the light? How do we make sense? Because it's one thing to say where we get to choose, we choose where we get to focus, and we are evolving, we are ascending. It's one thing to say that. On the other hand, it's a holy crap moment. And this seems like a holy crap year.
It's funny. I personally have never believed that we are here to control our reality to only be light, joy. because I don't think that's what this planet is. I think this planet has all of those things, but this planet is everything. And we've all incarnated at a time where, the war imprint, which the Z's refer to actually in the audiobook, they talk about the war imprint,
Yeah. And what
and
does
how,
that mean?
well, they say that the war imprint is man-made. It's not that there aren't galactic wars, and they talk about that too. They say there have been wars for just since forever. But they do say that there are groups on this planet who are for it, and there are other groups who are against it. So, in a way, we're in a frequency war, meaning those who are here to create more love, compassion, caring with one another and for the planet, they're one group. And those who are here to, shall we say, control and oppress humanity, they're a different group. So, I think what's so painful for all of us when we see this happening is, to us, it looks like sheer insanity. For the people pushing the buttons, the question is going to be, at what point does, this is what I think, at what point does the gap between governmental control and the people lessen? At what point does that gap get closer? And I think that's where we are as a society right now. Equally, I think we incarnate into this planet knowing that when we're gone, it's actually an easier state of being. So I think with anyone who you're losing right now, whether it's through the war or whether it's through other things that happen to, all of us in life, we experience things ourselves or we lose someone in a tragic car accident or any of that stuff. I think there's a human aspect to it that we go through as a grief process and a horror process. And then there's also a spiritual perspective. And I think from a spiritual perspective, this lifetime that you're in is seen as an experience. But from your identity or from my identity, it can get a lot more charged emotionally and mentally. So there's no way to see it. It's all going to be personal. It's all going to be your perspective. But I think what's so devastating for so many of us about these wars is the insanity of them. And when you realize that they're really about the redistribution of wealth, power, and resources, and that people are not considered in those things. People, we're told that we are, but we're not. And there are so many people who've researched that and have much more insight on that than I have. But I've heard from those people, I've read a lot, and yeah, it's one of the biggest shadows on our planet.
To me, at some point, the shadow becomes so great, it actually brings us to the light, meaning there's only so far it can be pushed before we, as whether we call it the veil thinning, the 3D to 5D, the ascension, we can put whatever term we want on it before we say, hey guys, enough, enough. And I think that's coming.
I think that's very much coming. And I'm taken back to the man in the concentration camp. I'm a little hazy on details because I heard this many, many years ago, but the man in the concentration camp, was it him who kept his son's spirits bright with storytelling? And yeah, no, this is something else I heard many, many years ago. And it's no different to people who are in lifetime prison sentences who become enlightened. It's a reminder to me that there are physical circumstances that we can endure or experience. And then there is also an inner world and what we choose to do with it. And so I think many people go into despair, and it's probably their job to go into despair about war because they're going to be the people who hopefully then, when they've got through their despair and their grief, become some of the biggest advocates against it and become most outspoken. But I think there are many on the planet who, whenever people go, oh, well, it's hopeless, why bother? I always think, well, we're alive. And just because there are parts of the world that are in crisis, it doesn't mean I'm going to ignore the part of the world that I'm in
Thank you.
that I can give something to. It's like, are you going to be a gardener or are you just going to sit and watch the forests die? And so for me, I'm not saying it's an easy choice and I'm not saying it's easy to get to that place because for me, it was very, very hard for many, many years. But then I got to the point where I'm like, well, I am going to die at some point, and who knows when that's going to be. And in the meantime, as much as I can, and as much as my health and my circumstances will allow me to, I would like to feel like I'm contributing to something more positive. Not Pollyanna, not sticking head in sand, not bypassing or saying, oh, everything's fine, it's all just a game. Because I've met spiritual people who say that too. And for me, that's not very empathic to what's going on in the world. So that's just not the way I'm wired. Maybe that's how they're wired and what they're experiencing, or that's the game they're playing. I'm different. I'm kind of 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot up here, and I live between the two. But most of the time, like most of us, I'm a human being having lots of human experiences with lots of humans I love. And to me, that's the point of life.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I want to ask just one more question, then we'll go to the Z's, and then I want to wrap up and understand what's your favorite chapter of your upcoming book. Um, you mentioned suffering, and we talked about the Buddha, or you talked about the Buddha earlier. Have the Z's say that suffering is always required for humanity, or could even that change over time?
No, no, they've said that that can and will change. It's interesting. I did a book with Regina Meredith called The Future Human. So for those who don't know, Regina is a journalist from Gaia TV in her own platform, and she's interviewed me a lot over the years. So we joined forces to do something called The Future Human. That's an audiobook and a book, and very similar format to Conversations with the Z's, where she is interviewing the Z's. So when you listen to the audiobook, it's not a narrated audiobook. You literally hear the conversations as they happen. And in that, there was some mention that in 300 years' time, which I know sounds probably depressing to some people, but in 300 years' time, war will no longer be a reality on this planet. And they map out how and why. Um, and they map out the evolution of what's coming in the next 100 years. And they talk about suffering as something that is intrinsic to how humanity was tampered with. They say that we came here originally, they say over 10,000 years ago, we came here with this capacity to be extraordinary beings and to be very highly attuned and highly, what's the word? Cosmic, if you like, in nature, in the way that we lived. But that there were a small group who wanted to control humanity, who came here and put in a way a kind of what did they call it? They called it a clamp on humanity's progress. And we are now in the phase where consciousness has risen on the planet to such a level that that clamp is beginning to break, which is also why we are seeing the old guard try even harder to take us back in time. So that's the kind of frequency battle we're in right now. But the Z's have said suffering is not required for progress. It often leads to progress, but it's more that we're stuck in a loop of bouncing between suffering and evolution. And I don't know about you, Michael, or anyone listening or tuning in on this. I I know there was a time in my life where suffering led me to breakthroughs. Now, uh, maybe suffering leads me to breakthroughs 1 time out of 10. And then the other 9 times, I'm just having breakthroughs through awareness or through presence or through consciousness or through tuning in. So I feel like there is a period in your evolution or in your life where perhaps suffering is the thing you are butting up against more of the time. And of course, we can always be put into a difficult situation. Physical suffering or any of those things can find us. But no, the Z's are quite adamant that you don't need to suffer to have a breakthrough. However, because suffering is very active and implanted on the planet, it's often having to walk into suffering to learn. And I think of some of the very toxic relationships I've walked into in my life. Um, Boy, oh boy, the hard lessons with very difficult relationships. But boy, did they teach me boundaries and how to be sovereign in a way that maybe I would never have learned it. And hopefully that's not the truth for everyone, but I know for many of us, that's how we learn through getting so involved in something that caused us suffering so that we then go, oh, I've put my hand in the fire. I won't do that again. It's very easy to put your hand in the fire and go, ow, that hurts. Sometimes there are slow burn sufferings that we find ourselves in, whether it's a job that you've stayed in for too many years and you haven't even noticed that you've lost your light, you've lost your spark because you haven't given yourself the opportunity to go, what if for the next 6 months I tried to see what else is out there? I mean, many people go, oh, well, there's nothing for me. And I'm like, that's not true at all. That's a belief. That's you thinking you have to stay in this vibration. And if there's one thing I do know, you don't have to stay in a certain vibration. It's not always going to be easy. And it's not just saying affirmations and hoping for the best and calling in angels. We've got to boots on the ground. You know, you've got to be active with your transformation as a human being with human patterns. You can't just ask spirit to do it for you. You can collaborate with and you can change that way.
Now, that's one foot on the ground and being connected up above. The archangel Sandalphon is the archetype for that, of the tallest archangel. Once was a human, still with a foot on the ground, because no, I'm spiritual. It'll take care of itself. No, what do you want? What are you feeling? What's calling you forward? What's the spark inside of you? You get to step forward. Particularly to me in 2025, this is not the year on the couch. Anyone.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up earlier. You've just reminded me. So the Z's told a group in London, I was channeling in London in 2016 at an event, and they said something that really pricked up my ears, but I was like, what does this mean? They said 2017 to 2024 are going to be massive changes on the planet, and it's going to be tough at times. And at the time, it was 2016, and I thought, okay, boy, did that pan out to be true. I think, 2015 was a very different time in the world. So was 2016 to some degree, although it was beginning then. And then they said 2025 to 2030, you're going to see a lot of positive growth and you're going to see more evidence of a new world when you get to 2025 and beyond. So it's interesting you brought up the energy of this year because it has been fast, propulsive, unlike any other. And it doesn't mean that everything looks good. I think sometimes we hear those messages and we think, oh, great, everything's going to be great. No, we're not on a planet where great is a uniform experience. We're on a planet that has a lot of inequity. And so we're in a period of time and history where, we're having to see all of that, feel that, which can be very uncomfortable and very sobering for all of us in order to create something different in the future. And I'm so heartened when I see what I would call grassroots evidence of that. I'm speaking to someone the other day here in the UK, and they're telling me about this garden that they're growing, and they're giving all their neighbors vegetables. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then of course you can also see things out there online that are bigger, that maybe have more of a global reach. But the Z's always say, and this is important because I think we're all easily seduced by numbers or what we think of as success. They say the grandmother who is educating the one child
Thank you.
is no less important than, say, the global figure who has represented transformation for many people. And I've always felt that's true. I've always known that's true. And I'm seeing more and more evidence of people becoming really beautifully empowered. And I'll say one last thing. I just did a course called Next Level Healer because I felt really strongly I wanted to devote to healers around the world. I've done this 21 years now, so I thought there are some things I can share and I'll also channel because healers are needed. And we as healers have been quite stigmatized. There's a lot of historical record as to why healers have been stigmatized. If you look at the control of religion, the control of modern medicine, there were times when it was very convenient to get rid of those who held knowledge from the earth, from the plants, medicines. So it was interesting. We had a beautiful group of about 2,300 people who did this course. And what struck me was how unique and different they all were. They were from countries all over the world. We had so many registered nurses who were leaving nursing and going into a different form of healing. We had all kinds, and it was, for me, it was so heartening to see that too. So, as well as all the things I see locally, just through my work recently, last month, I got to see this incredible wave of very passionate, very heartfelt people who maybe just needed a little bit more confidence and trust in what they're doing to step out there and deliver it to the world. And I think that's the time we're in. I think more people are ready to step forward with their gifts, whether they're a healer, whether they're something else in their community, whether they're ready to be a parent and parent the next generation. I mean, there are so many ways that we contribute to the future of society.
Thank you. I want to go to the Z's before I do that. Just bring it full circle here to that question from a Mystics member yesterday about her feeling small and not making a difference. When you speak of that grandmother, and I asked her last night, I said, "Do you have people in your life?" Yes. Have you make a difference in their life? I believe so. There is this judgment that we need to be on air, write a book, speaking even for myself, that you need to reach blah, 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 or you haven't made a difference.
100%. And I also wonder in her case, was she so overwhelmed by the suffering in the world in that moment and she couldn't rescue people from it? Which I think is also a healer imprint that you have, you know. I learned early on that I don't know whether I'm going to, this is what I share with healers. It's not our job to save or rescue someone. That's not the job. We're here to facilitate a dimension of healing for other people, and we might be someone's breakthrough or we might be someone's breadcrumb. And I learned very early on not to get attached to being someone's breakthrough. There were loads of people who would come and see me for one-on-ones or groups, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, this changed my life." And then there'd be others who, you know, would get something from it. And maybe years later they would say, "Oh, I'm just living my best life now. And you were a great contributor to that. Thank you." So what I learned was you have to know that the suffering is there and just keep planting trees. Don't worry that there are forests over there that might be burning down or are in jeopardy. If you can't go and save that forest because it's not in your power or it's not a possibility because you can't fly across the world to do it, plant a forest near your home. And that's what we can do. And so perhaps she also was feeling just a little overwhelmed, understandably, by the pain in the world and the part of her that wants to take it away or, you know, wave a magic wand, which, you know, I think all of us feel when a friend is suffering, you wish you could take it away for them, but you also know you can't because that's not our job. That's not any of our job as a human. We can help each other. We can support each other. And for those who are wired to do that, that will feel good to you because it will feel like you are doing what you are designed to do. But our path is our path. And yeah, it could just be that she was rubbing up against some of that over responsibility that can come when you are wildly empathic and that you have opened and you have let the pain of the world flood into your body. You have to learn how to not absorb that much pain and also ask yourself, because I've met many empaths who kind of speak of it like a badge of honor, but I've also pointed out to some of them, what pain in your childhood are you still trying to process through taking on the pain of everybody else?
Oh, Biggie.
It's a blind spot for many empaths.
Yeah.
They think they're being a hero, but I've met many empaths who actually aren't that effective. Like they'll say, "Oh, I'm feeling your pain," and I'm like, "That's not useful to me. I don't want you to feel my pain. If I'm in pain, I'm looking for a motivator, a strong person. I don't want you diving down into the hole with me. Thank you. That's not how I work." Some empaths haven't yet caught up with the fact that the reason they're emotionally dysregulated is because they're trying to solve something in themselves through overly moving into the energy field of everyone else, be it the world at large or be it someone in their close circle. So, you know, the path of an empath is one that actually is a growth path. It shouldn't be a final destination. It should be something you grow through. And I think those of us who still feel empathic but have managed to, I've definitely managed to hook myself out of some of the places where I was too leaked into other people. It's the only way you develop your backbone, and it's the only way you can survive and actually be useful to others is my experience and what I've witnessed with a lot of people.
Thank you. So then let's go from there. Let's hear from the Z's for just a little bit. I'm very curious what they have to say right now. Now, for yourself, when you channel the Z's, are you hearing it? Does it leave a residual? How does that work for you?
Well, I normally hear the first three, four words and I kind of have them up here and I start speaking. And usually within about 30 to 60 seconds, it's fully locked in. There's no more seeing or hearing words, it's just coming straight through. My experience is like it's a bit like sitting behind your own usual brain and listening, but I can't remember much. One or two things might pique my attention and I might come out of a channel and go, "Oh, there was that thing they said that I'm interested in. I need to think about that." But no, so it's conscious, but it's not like your own mind where you've got control of your own thoughts and reflections. It's more like just letting it through. Yeah.
Do you get a rest while you're doing it then?
No. No, it's a good
Worth
energy. It's a good
asking.
energy, but it takes I don't like to channel for more than ideally no more than 75 minutes. And when we do the book sessions, we I would channel for 3 hours a day, and I would normally it would take me a week to come back to Earth after doing those. Yeah.
I do my channeled classes and teachings on Monday night, and I have to have a rule and safety limits, or it will just, even though I'll look at like my watch and my stress levels and stuff are way down when I'm channeling, my energy is way up. I need to recover.
It hits you afterwards. That's the interesting thing. Normally when it's over, you feel good for about 5, 10 minutes, but it can really wallop you later. So it's I mean, not I've done this now for God, 21 years publicly, but I've had my connection with my guides for about 27 years. So I'm quite used to it now. But it takes time to calibrate for any channeler, I think, especially when you channel, let them through your body and your mouth and your words. So I'll close my eyes and it will take a moment and then they'll start. Hmm. Good. You are loving souls in this group. Part of the frequency in Michael that you are all attracted to is his love and his care. And so, why you wrap around his way of what we will call holding conversation with others is because the frequency is one of upliftment, one of caring for self and other, but ultimately, it is a vibration of love that you all resonate with him. Some of you resonate with it because you identify as the same as him and you feel a kinship with him. Others among you identify with it because you need love in your life. You need to be around a loving presence, or in some cases, a loving man. And so he is a healing balm for you or a remedy. Others among you are here because you like to tune in on many different voices, many different souls, and you recognize he is a place where a good intention is being put out into the world. So, that is the act of resonance between those of you who tune in on Michael and those who do not, we should say. It is a vibration of love and caring that you are either here for because you yourself are amplifying that into the world, or at this stage in your life at least, you are coming to it because you receive that from Michael. And you receive that from the way he holds, you would call it space, we would say he holds conversational frequency with others. But now let's look at the other side of things. You are all human and you are all multifaceted, multidimensional. You are not one thing. None of you are just loving, just caring. So, with the gathering around Michael and this show, the word you would use, we will say there is a gathering of souls who wish to uplift the planet and for the betterment of self or others. And for many of you, it is both. You are interested in uplifting yourselves, but you are also interested in uplifting others. And there are a small number who are here to try and uplift yourself. And that's okay. That's a stage of the journey. When you have recalibrated yourself, when you have brought yourself to a place of self love, self stability, you will then share it with others, for that is the path of oneness. It seeks to be benevolent and share with others. So, what of this suffering that has been spoken of today? What of the suffering in the world? Well, we will say that why it is hard for many of you to process how you feel about the suffering in the world is, and Lee used this word, the insanity of what you see on the planet. Because nowhere in your minds does it make sense when you see humans wanting to decimate or destroy one another. It makes no sense to you. It's not what you are asking for. It's not what you want. And yet, it is what is happening. And oftentimes in your name. Oftentimes, depending on which country or region you are living in, you are seen as the attacker because you are involved in the fight, just through virtue of being in that region or in that country. So, the reason it is so hard for you to process these deep and intense emotions is twofold. It is not logical that any of this is happening, it makes no sense. And secondly, there is an enormous amount of rippled pain that comes out of these areas of the world. So, even though many media sources will try and engage you in the fight, they will try and say, well, this is happening to protect you and this country, which of course is an illusion, for you are not protected whenever you enact war upon another country. You are actually vulnerable to retaliation. So you are told one thing, but the reality is no part of you, although there are a small group who do, no part of you wants to get behind that kind of primal fight. And there is another part of you that is deeply feeling the pain, the horror, and the visceral terror that is happening for those lives who, for whatever reason, on any given day, have been upended, decimated, terminated. So, those of you who are deep feeling people, it is not a mistake that you have these feelings. These feelings are feelings of sadness, empathy, pain, and brother and sisterhood moving through your system. For you know that that could also be you. That could also be you. So for some of you, the empathy comes from realizing it could be you. And for others, you don't even go there in your mind. You just let your heart feel for those who are going through this wounding, this suffering. And then there is a whole other layer, which is those of you who are so tired of this game on earth and so angry that this plays out. So we say to all of you, feel your feelings. You are not just feeling the present, you are feeling history. We will say that again. You are not just feeling the present, you are feeling history. There is a history of trauma on this planet around the games of, we will say, WAR. And that is important for all of you to understand. So part of what happens every time there is more bloodshed is you grieve the fact that this paradigm even exists on your planet and that somehow you have been inadvertently caught up in it. So while we do advocate that you feel your feelings and bring yourself back to a place where you can be present in your life and on earth and perhaps even be useful or loving or kind to others that might need those energies from you, we also do not in any way wish for you to suppress those feelings that you are having that are deep, that are worthy, and that are earned across time, not just in what is playing out now. And that is why this is a time of people revolution, and it is going to continue to be. For more and more of you will say, not in my name, not in my name. And it will take that act of revolution over and over again in the years to come to even start to cause a shift and a rift between those who have allowed leadership to play out the way it has played out over recent decades and centuries, and those who will call for something different. And we know there are many of you who feel intimidated by this idea. You don't quite know where to start, how to start, what to do. That's okay. There will be others who will, and they will be your leaders in these times. We will also say there are many who will work from inside your systems of leadership to try and bring about change. So it is important not to create an us and them scenario, which some of you do. Some of you like to decide that a whole leadership is, we will use this word, it's a strong word. Some of you decide it is evil. We say that is a very limited way of thinking. It is far more complex and nuanced than that. And there are individuals who are on the inside working to dismantle the old archaic system. But equally, and this is important to be said too, there are certain cultures where instability exists toward other humans. It is not just leadership. There are certain cultures where the wounds of war have burnt deep into the psyches and the souls of some of the people who have decided to fight back. So it is not just about your leadership, it is about dealing with a cultural reckoning on Earth. And what many of you are experiencing on Earth right now is the journey of the last 300 to 400 years rising to the surface for a rebalancing. So, with all of that said, we will bring our attention to you, Michael, and any question you may have for us.
Thank you. It's very interesting that you call it a rebalancing. You've mentioned that this is a year that's a precipice year. What does that mean, and how can we tell if we're aligned with great change versus actually stuck and suffering in the old?
We would say this is a precipice decade, and 2025 is a year of ignition. It is
Oh,
a year of ignition forward. Not all of the forward progress will happen this year, not at all, but there is an ignition energy for the first time in 5 years that will start to propel all of you forward in your lives, and also you as a society will be moving very fast, as you already have been in this first half of the year, through all of these aspects that you are having to grapple with, come to terms with, reckon with. So we will say, in answer to your question, what is important for all of you is to find your own inner balance. If you are very burned out by what is playing out on the planet, do not keep rushing out there and trying to serve. Take time to step back. Perhaps it is hard for you to step back because most of you have commitments and responsibilities in your lives that do not make it easy for you to just, shall we say, take 3 days off. But all of you can create practices and spaces in your day where you are able to, shall we say, power down, take your foot off the gas, have an expansive experience. And that is how many of you will stay afloat during these times. We said many years ago, many times, and Lee would take this message from us and place it into his energy updates that he creates every month. Self-care is not a luxury. So often, self care has been coined as this recovery process or restorative process. And we say, no, no, don't wait until you need self care. Use self care on a daily basis to cultivate good, positive feelings inside you. Because if humanity loses those feelings, humanity is lost. So, as a keeper of joy, as a keeper of love, as a keeper of compassion, you are keeping a sole truth of humanity alive during a time where the dance between the soul and technology is going to be part of your next frontier.
thank you. There's two directions I want to go with this. I'm not sure if we can weave them both together, which is you say that this is a year of ignition. And I want to understand more fully what that means, because we can ignite love, we can ignite joy, we can also ignite a bomb and technology. And what does that have to do with all of this?
Well, ignition has many different forms, but energetically, what your planet is going through in the year of 2025 is an acceleration and a thrust energy. So, this will thrust people in all directions. Those who want to thrust destruction upon others, it will give them a momentum. It will give them a propulsion. Those who want to thrust enlightenment upon others, it will give them a momentum. It will give them a propulsion. So, there is no one term where energy is concerned, or we should say no one outcome where energy is concerned. It's an ignition year for all on Earth, which will be showing as different for each of you. Each of you will be experiencing your own acceleration into your future, and you will be crafting your future as you go. So, because the energies are fast, that is why we say to you, take a breath, step back, keep checking you are aligned with your inner self as much as keeping up with the outside world. Hmm.
Thank you. What would you say is one? we didn't get to technology. What's coming with technology, and is that here to? Oh my gosh, I've been using AI for amazing good, or AI has been working with me for amazing good. What do you see going on with technology right now?
AI has the capacity to become sentient. It is old technology, not new. It has just come to Earth in this form. But like anything on Earth, it can be used for good or for ill. There are those who have used your internet to create unity consciousness, increase telepathy. For the internet has tapped into telepathy on the planet. It has allowed people to connect with aspects of wisdom, other people, other cultures in ways they never had access to before. So, what it has increased is intuition and telepathy on the planet. But equally, it can be used to increase lower aspects and vibrations too. So it is all about how technology is used. What we see happening for humanity in the coming 5 to 10 years is a series of radical shifts and many improvements. There will be many improvements around health, around vitality and well-being for humans that this technology can usher in, but it will all depend where the control around the technology is. You are also at a time where your human health systems are going through a breakdown and a shift because they have become, we will say, corrupted in many ways. Now, we have to be careful when we say that because the truth is, if you removed your human health system tomorrow, you would all be in trouble because you have become dependent on it, understandably. But what we are saying is, the power of this technology to serve those on the planet versus to be used to create more power for those in power on the planet. That is the battle that you are in right now. And it's no different to the battle you've been in all of this time before AI appeared. So you are going to see great advances. You are also going to see some areas where AI creates or causes what we will call a certain level of damage. And it is when that damage is seen, witnessed, and felt by humanity, stronger calls for control will rise. At the moment, people do not know what they do not know. And until certain things have played out, there will not necessarily be regulations put in place to protect that from happening again. It is a very big topic and one we addressed in some detail in our Future Human conversations with Regina Meredith, but that is a good overview that we can give you in a short and more simple answer.
Thank you. We're wrapping this up, bringing it full circle. What's something unexpectedly positive coming for humanity that hasn't been discussed enough? And how do you see humanity going from here?
We can tell you between 2026 and 2028, you are going to see some extraordinary breakthroughs in human health. The ability to repair people's ailments, illnesses in ways that you have never seen in your generation. And these are going to be brought forward. We know some of you worry that these things get suppressed. They will not be suppressed, they will come forward. And that will change the game for so many people and so many aspects of society. But equally, you are going to see a reckoning between humans and leadership around the world regarding how humans are able to survive and provide for themselves with the rise of technology replacing what you would call human jobs and work. So that is going to be ultimately a very positive reckoning that takes place, but it will take a few years to play out fully, and it will require humans standing up for their rights, which they will. And at times it will be charged and seem intense emotionally to some of you, but it will be the breakthrough that is required to shift humanity forward into a different place when it comes to technology versus humanity instead of technology with humanity.
Thank you. As a last question, unless you have anything further to share, and I'm open to anything. I see my daughter running around outside the studio, 3 years old, and I'm thinking about the new gen. How much is the new generation, or how much is humanity shifting generationally right now, or coming in? at a different level, for lack of another word, of consciousness or ascension?
They are more cosmically wired. What we mean by this is they are receiving a lot more information from above their heads than any prior generation because it is very hard for them to grapple with the earth as it is. Meaning, so much is in flux and change on Earth right now that many of you who grew up in this, we will say, form of humanity and form of Earth are also grappling with. For it is shifting your own personal identities as your personal identity shifts in tandem with a shifting Earth. But for the younger people who are coming in, they cannot get so involved with Earth. They cannot get so involved with old earthly ways because it is not in their recent history as a body or as an identity. It is in flux and it is chaotic. So it is leaving a lot of them, we will say, freer to be cosmically connected. The gift of this is the ones who are wired for higher consciousness and are given an experience of higher consciousness by those who raise them and the love and the support that they need to become themselves, they will do very, very well and they will be important leaders for humanity's future. But equally, there will be many who will not know how to ground because they will not know where they can ground, and they will also be dealing with parents or guardians or caretakers who can't ground at a time where the world is in flux. So, this is why any of you who are guardians or parental figures to young people right now, you need to understand that the rule book is very different to when you were growing up. And so you have to be a little more creative, responsive, and unique in the way you guide them and understand that that's okay. Understand that they are growing up at a very fast time in humanity's history. But if you connect with them soul to soul, heart to heart, higher mind to higher mind, you will have some extraordinary experiences with these children. So we hope that that gives some assistance, or anything we have said gives some assistance. The most important thing for any of you on any given day is to ask yourself, how am I doing today? And be honest with yourself about how you are feeling. And if you are feeling in a way that feels distressing or difficult or heavy or painful for you, ask yourself, what can I do today to bring myself some soothing, some relief, or some light? And you can choose a very small, simple, short activity. You may decide you need to give yourself 2 hours away from what it is that you need to do in order to reset. It will be different on different days, but don't forget yourselves in these times. It's very easy for any of you to get pulled into the out there of it all. This is a very important time for you to not only come back to who you are, but discover who you are at this very new time on earth, and therefore this very new time in who you are. In peace, in love, and in oneness to all.
That was a beautiful channeling. Um, yeah, I go into detail with you, but then I want to give you some rest now. So I want to go into one last question. Then I want to know where people can find your work. Of course, you have an amazing book coming out, and you have a really special chapter in it. And I'm wondering if you can share what that chapter means to you.
Yeah. So firstly, I should qualify this. This is an audiobook only. The first two conversations with disease were also in paperback and Kindle. But for those of you who go looking for the book, this one unfortunately isn't in print, but it is the original audio conversations. So Diana Edwards, who was the psychotherapist who interviews disease on death, dying, reincarnation for this book or audiobook, she had a very dear friend called Kelly who had a long journey with cancer. I believe that by the time Kelly died, it was about a 9 year journey that she'd had with cancer. She was an extraordinary spirit, and I met her, I believe, just once when she came to a workshop of mine. And for the final chapter of this audiobook, Diana suggested that Kelly speak to the Z's about her life, her journey, her upcoming death, what her life had been about, what she could expect on the other side. And it's about a 70-minute conversation. And what you hear in the audiobook is Kelly speaking to the Z's. And it's rare that I come out of a channel and I cry. I mean, it's happened a few times, but that was just the most moving thing. And I had an email from Kelly, or through Diana actually, who told me that Kelly said it had helped her so much, which of course was nice to hear because it's a very raw experience that, it's very bold and brave of her to choose to do it, but she wanted to do it. And she said, I would like to leave this as part of my legacy. So that chapter to me is lots of people have interviewed the Z's over the years, but I think that's possibly my favorite dialogue that the Z's have ever had with another human because it was so raw, so real, so illuminating. And so, yeah, that's the final chapter of this audiobook.
Thank you. And then where can people go to find your work? The audiobook will be coming out very shortly after this airs to find your audiobook.
Yes, June 30th, I believe, is the date, June 30th. So it will be out at the end of this month. So I'm at leeharrisenergy.com, where you can find everything I do. I also have a YouTube channel called Lee Harris Energy, where I put monthly energy updates, lots of different free videos. And I also create music with Davor Bozik. We create high frequency music. So you can find that at leeharrismusic.com. And actually, in early July, there will be a video going on my YouTube channel that's a joint video with Pam Gregory, where the two of us look at both the astrology of the last half of this year, and also I look at the energetics that I've received intuitively, and we share it together collaboratively. So that's free if it comes out in solstice. You can sign up for that, and it's free to watch. Or it will probably go on YouTube about July the 10th or something. So if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll get notification when that video comes out.
Fantastic. Last question I have, share anything, say I've shared enough. Are you hopeful for the future, and what gives you hope?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I am hopeful for the future. I'm realistic too. I think there's lots of challenges, but I'm hopeful for the future because as much as we see so much of the old guard stuff happening, I also see so many humans rising in different ways, in different areas. There are so many people doing brilliant work in areas I do not know anything about. That's not my area of expertise. So I'm just heartened by what I see. And also I'm finishing this with you, and I'm going to go and spend the evening with my beautiful mother who's about to turn 81. And so I'm personally just filled with gratitude that I can go and do that with her now because we lost my dad in 2020. So, I'm very aware. I'm very aware that in a moment any of us can go, and I try and live through that principle. And so I would say more than hope, it gives me gratitude for being alive. And of course, I have my moments where I forget that or go into stress, and then I'm in stress and I have to bring myself out of it. But overall, I'm like, wow, we're alive. And, someone I love just died at 53 unexpectedly. So I would say I have hope for the future, but more than anything, I try and live with gratitude for the present.
Amen. Thank you so much. Talk about gratitude. Thank you so much for such a brilliant, beautiful, I love the energy today, heartfelt interview, Lee. This has been amazing.
I loved being with you, Michael, and thank you for the gorgeous space that you hold. We've seen each other several times over the years, and you always hold beautiful space. But today was particularly, I think there's a tenderness in the world right now, and I hope that what was cooked up here hopefully can support people with some of that.
I would agree entirely. So for everyone out there, with what little I have left of my voice, for everyone out there, be well, have fun, dive into the tenderness, into the rawness. Know you're going to be okay and better than okay, but be with light and meet it where it's at. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Thank you so much, Lee.
Thank you. This was beautiful.
Wow. What a beautiful, special, heartfelt, sacred energy of an interview. I think we all needed this right now. Probably going to go long in airing this, but I think it's worth it. On that note, if you want to bring your energy up, 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 and way up, come join us in the School of Mystics 4 Wednesdays each and every month, live and recorded. We bring your energy up with attunements, with teachings, with clearings, with group, with love, with group intention meditations to help you live at that higher plane. At School of Mystics, got the link down below. If you simply want to bring your energy up, and way up on a daily basis, get my newsletter. I know it's a scary term, dailywoohoo.com. Consider it a daily transmission and a daily attunement, dailywoohoo.com. If you want to learn how to channel and communicate with the other side, with intelligent masters, with ascendant masters, with whomever you're called to, along with your loved ones, angels, and guides, go to automaticwriting.com. That's that other link down below where we have live classes monthly, plus enough to get you going so you can begin channeling tomorrow morning. Here's a link to the next amazing show. Love you so, so much. Keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Love. I sent you love. I sent you love. I send you love.